Hi, I'm James Brookes, and welcome to From the Factory Floor, a conversational podcast about all things startup and tech, brought to you by the folks at tsf.tech. So, welcome to episode 22 now of From the Factory Floor, joined by my co-host. I'm giving him the title now. You can have it. I've whittled on about enough the last couple of weeks. Ian. Hi, Ian.
Morning.
And this week we're joined by someone who actually knows what they're doing when it comes to this sort of stuff. Hi, Reece.
How you doing? You well?
Yeah, not so bad. I mean, I was a bit put off by the snow this week in April, but I think we've managed to just about get through. So I'll let Reece do a little introduction, but this week's episode, following on from when we spoke to Ian McCartney last time about his journey from corporate to the startup world. Obviously, we want to really get into, Reece, all about your startup journey, how you've gone from, where you were to having an idea to really turning that into a piece of software, obviously, that we're working on at the moment. So I'll stop wittering. And Reece, do you want to do a very quick introduction?
Absolutely. So, hello, guys. Morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it might be.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
My name's Reece Douglas, and I am the founder of Social Plug, which is an influencer marketing platform. Many of you might even know me from being on TV. Still do bits of TV now, but mainly back in 2016-17. I played the role as Denzel Kelly. I was a little bugger, to be quite nice. I was a little bugger running around the school in a show called Waterloo Road. And I did that for the best part of 5 years. And you can imagine, as a kid that was on TV at 13, was in a bit of a whirlwind. He didn't really know what was going on in his life. He just knew that he was on TV. He was earning, a decent salary at a young age. And he thought, this is it. I am set for life. How wrong I was.
And then the real world happened.
Yes.
So that must have given you an amazing amount of confidence and self-belief, Reece, because I think that's one of the things that all entrepreneurs need. Beginning that journey, that self-belief, I think, is the key thing. So, yeah, we've all approached it in a different way. My light bulb moment was born out of frustration rather than inspiration, but I had that self-belief, and that's one of the things I've enjoyed about working with yourself is that energy and that confidence that you have about that driving yourself and your idea forward.
Absolutely. And, to be quite honest with you, from being thrust onto a mainstream TV so young, I managed to gain so much confidence. And I can only thank my mum and my grandmother and the rest of my family to keep my feet on the ground. And they did that really well. But as you said, Ian, it did give me a self-belief and not to feel like I felt entitled, but it really did give me a picture and the time frame to know what I wanted out of life. I can only feel it was a blessing that I found my, I wouldn't necessarily say my calling because it's a bit of a binary box, but I definitely found something I was passionate about, and I thought I could create a business from this.
I think it's interesting because I think you're very grounded as well and realistic and determined and hardworking. So, I have a stereotypical view of an actor, especially he kind of breezed into life and had this fabulous experience, but you've got a real grounded attitude and approach, which I think is one of those things. This is going to be hard work. And, we've been talking we were talking, 6 or 9 months before we actually made a start with you as well.
Well, yeah, it took a hell of a long time. I remember, I think I went into your meeting with a minimum viable product on a keynotes pages. That was my idea of an MVP. I did everything that I possibly could, to what I thought I was ready for investment. And you guys said, look, it's great with what you've done, but you need to go back and you need to do more. And that's exactly what I did. So I grinded away for a year. So I'll go a bit back a step to give some more context into how I came about this journey. As Ian said, as an actor, it actually wasn't as glamorous as it seems. You spend 80% of your time in the green room waiting to go on set. And because I'd been recognized off the show, I started to gain quite a large following on social media. And this was on Twitter before Instagram got big. And what I started to find was that I was getting a lot of inboxes of brands. I'll name one of them that you might recognize, Canada Goose. They're a premium coat company. And one day they inboxed me and they said, can we send you some coats? And I was like, yes, of course. It was freezing in Rochdale. And they said, go on the website and pick 2 you want. So I just went straight to the highest price. Who wouldn't? I was like, I want these 2 coats. And I was like, there's no way on this earth they're going to send me these coats. And then they thanked me in the post. Within 5 days, I had these 2 brand new coats through my door. I thought it was Christmas with a little note off Canada Goose saying, thank you so much. And I'm like, what? What the biggest realization for me there was that in that little note, they said, please wear it and stick it on your Twitter and shout about it. And I thought, well, that's what this is all about, of course. But I thought, how could such a big brand make a fundamental mistake? Because it only took me to look at my audience demographics on Twitter and realize that 80% of them were female. So essentially what this brand has done is they've asked me to advertise $4,000 worth of products to a female, of a male product, a male coat to a female audience. You've just completely marketed to the opposite of your target market. And I thought, how many other brands are making this mistake? And that was really like the light bulb moment for me. So what I started to do was continue with Canada Goose. I felt it was Christmas Day every day. I was inboxing every brand you could imagine. I was having flying drones sent through my door. The postman hated me. The mum hated me. And I absolutely loved it. But then obviously it got to a stage where I thought, this is great getting all these products, but I'm not actually making any money out of this. What could I do to turn this into a business? So it was quite obvious that Canada Goose weren't going to listen to this young kid off TV telling them that they've just lost $4,000 worth of products. I thought that probably wasn't a wise idea. So what I decided to do was contact more local brands. And one of them was an e-commerce jewelry company in Manchester called Fire Jewelry. And I said, hey, would you be interested in working with some influencers, some of my celebrity friends? And they went, yeah, absolutely. Tell us who you're interested in, who's interested in our products, and we'll send them out. So initially what I was doing was I was sending products to my celebrity friends and getting them to post about it. But it had one instance, and we worked with Katie McDermott off Love Island, and she charged something ridiculous like £2,500 for 2 posts. And it worked really well. Don't get me wrong. It did work well. We got a hell of a lot of click-throughs. We increased their Instagram revenue by like 1,500% in 1 month. And I also worked with a dental surgery as well. We were getting celebrities to go to this dental surgery, and they were getting the teeth and whatnot. And they said, Reece, can you stop? We need to stop this. And I was like, oh no, what's happened? And then she was like, we can't take any more people through the door. It's absolute full. We've had 900 new patients in the space of like a year. We need to stop. So I was like, this is ridiculous. So I was like, wow, we've actually really got something here. But what I'd realized was that a lot of the other brands I was working with couldn't afford to spend £2,500 on a post, with one celebrity. So I started to engage with more local influencers that weren't necessarily influencers, but as we call micro-influencers. And micro-influencers are everyday people just like me and you that have built a trusted and engaged audience. So these are extensions of your friends and of your family that love what they post about, whether it be about food or fitness or fashion. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start engaging with these people. And again, I had a campaign and I ran it with around 10 or 20 micro-influencers at the time. And things just went absolutely through the roof. The campaign was the best campaign I'd ever run. And for me, that was, again, more of a light bulb moment where I thought, this is working, but oh my God, micro-influencers are the way forward. Not only are they cheaper, not only are they more engaged, but they're actually gaining more results. So I thought, I've got a business here. I know from getting free products, working with my celebrity friends, I've now got a business. So I continued to work with small and local brands around Manchester. And I hit a ceiling when I started to work with that many micro-influencers. I couldn't scale. And what I mean by that is...
Pick that point up. Sorry to interrupt that. It's really interesting. And sorry to cut you off in mid-flow, but what was interesting there was that your energy and your focus, and you were relentless to kind of get this stuff. It was all before you. You made it happen. You got involved. Working on your own, how did you get that focus? How did you decide what to do? How did you organize yourself? Because one of the challenges of being a solo founder is there's so much to be done. How did you prioritize, Reece? How did you kind of choose what to do next?
Well, acting was my bread and butter. it was all I knew. And at that young age, Ian, I didn't look any further. Why would I as a young lad? And unfortunately, the show came to a very quick end for me of no fault of my own. And, there was a time where I was really depressed. I was really down. I was questioning how this guy that was the most recognized guy, out of, not that being recognized matters, but being thrown from one world where everybody wants, you to be at places and you're the cool guy, to suddenly then becoming nothing. 1 minute you're hot, the next you're not, right? And I questioned at a young age, at 15, what the hell am I going to do with my life? I remember a day where my money, I wasn't good with my money back then. And I spent it all trying to impress people that, to be honest, probably wouldn't have turned up at my funeral. And I'm glad I made that realization at such a young age. And there was a day where I had no money. I couldn't pay my rent at home. I couldn't pay my phone bill. I had my mum paying it. And my stepdad came in my room one day and he brought in the ironing board and he brought in his shirt. And he said, get out of bed. Because, I was sleeping till midday, 1 o'clock. I was depressed. And he said, get out of bed. It's time to wake up. So I was like, what's going on? He was like, it's time to welcome you to the real world. And I was like, oh my God. And then I had these images of myself working in Tesco of like trying to scan people shopping, and at the same time they're asking for a picture of me while I'm there with my scanner. And I thought, oh my God, could you imagine how humiliating that would be for me? People would be thinking it's some sort of a joke.
So it's a little bit of personal adversity, which again, born out of that determination that I've seen since we've been working with you. You're determined to make this happen, and everyone thinks the entrepreneurial journey is kind of positive and we're just going to build a great business, we're going to raise money. Your pivot moment was from adversity and people who cared for you and loved you around you, giving you that kick, but you got up and you did it for yourself. So that beginning of your startup journey is, I need to do something for myself.
Absolutely.
That's key message.
Absolutely. And I think you find from a lot of founders and entrepreneurs that they come across a problem that has really affected them. And it's that effect and it's that cause that really drives them forward, because they don't want to ever go back to that place they were for whatever reason they've come across. And, I remember when I was ironing that shirt, the postman came and he posted a letter through the door. And my mum went down and she got the letter and she put it in my room, and it was this brown envelope. So of course there, I've put the iron down, I've opened up the envelope, and it was a cheque. And this cheque was from basically an actors union. So if your show's ever showed on, somewhere else across the world that wasn't in your contract, you're due fees from that. And it was a cheque for like $2,500. And, two sides of me came out. It was like, ha, you bugger, I'm getting back to sleep. But at the same time, it was like, at the same time, I was like, something right now is telling me that this isn't for me. This isn't for me. So I put the cheque back on the ironing board. I didn't tell my stepdad to iron the cheque, but I did say, I'm going back to bed. And he said, I have never met somebody like you in my life. And I went, what do you mean? And he went, I just can't believe out of all the days that this was the day that I thought you were going to get a normal job, that cheque comes through the door. And he goes, I've never met a guy like you. And he slammed my door shut and I went back to sleep. But when I woke up, I knew then that was a little sign or something telling me that I'm on the right track. And this is a bit of cash to keep me going in this journey. So that's exactly what I did. I started to work with more and more micro-influencers, more and more local brands. But I then hit the ceiling, as I said. When working with micro-influencers, if you're a brand listening to this, there's two ways of contact, either through their agency or through them directly. When you're going to find an influencer that you'd like to work with, you can contact them on Instagram or whatever social network you feel's best. And you've got to email them, introduce yourself, your brand. You've got to make sure, ask them what products they'll be happy to promote. Then you've got to agree on the campaign. Then you've got to agree on the fee. Then you've got to make sure they've posted on time or if at all. And then you've got to measure the impact of that campaign. But how do you make sure that you fundamentally don't make the same mistake that Canada Goose did, that you were targeting the right audience? And those were the problems I was having on a daily basis, not only with the transparency of data, but also in terms of the logistics of working with micro-influencers at scale. And that's where I thought, I need a tech solution here. I need a tech solution. I've got something that works. It's working. I'm making sales. I'm getting great engagement for brands, but I can't scale. It was a nice problem to have, but it was a bad problem for me at the time. So then the next question for me was, how does a young guy who doesn't or can't write a line of code start building a tech company?
It's always been an interesting thing, sort of, ever since I think we've started doing this, that most founders that we meet really aren't technical. So I've always been impressed by people who can take, the journey you'd been on from, acting through to not just accepting these coats and drones, but actually realizing there's potentially an opportunity there to do something rather than just going, I can get a load of free stuff.
Absolutely.
And moving into an arena which is so alien and so, niche at times in terms of people look at tech and see code on a screen and then sort of just go, nah, I don't understand this. It's always impressive when people move into tech rather than necessarily being scared away by it.
Yeah. And, I think for anybody that's listening that maybe have an idea and are probably listening to this to see how to go about building a tech business, you've got to look at your resources and your network around you. I think from the outset, that is the biggest asset that you can have. One organisation that I can't thank enough, at Tech Manchester, they took me in and they basically held a mentor event. So they have a match or meet your mentor event. And I thought the first thing I need to do is find somebody that understands tech and can help me with my journey and put me in the right direction. Someone I can trust and get unbiased advice from. So I went to this Tech Manchester event, and it was like a hot seating event. You pitch your business idea to about 10 or 15 different, well-established entrepreneurs, and they pick which business they'd like to work with. Some businesses manage to find a mentor, some don't find at all. So you have from a list of 3, which you think are the best mentors that you'd like to work with, and then you have a wild card, which is somebody separate that you think maybe they'll be right. Out of me and this other mentor, we both matched on the wild card, and we started conversations in terms of what my idea was. He had an e-commerce jewelry company, so he was interested in the influencer market and more about my knowledge and how that could be implemented in his business. And he had much experience in tech, so was able to help me gain the knowledge I needed and where to start. So I spoke to Trish Keating, who's the head of Tech Manchester, and I said to her, look, I don't think at home is the right environment for me to work at the minute. I need to be amongst these other companies that are all well established in tech. I need to put myself in it and amongst it, basically. And she says, I've got an interesting conversation that you can have with somebody if you like. So I was like, who the hell's that? He was like, it's Lawrence Jones from UK Fast. He'd like to do a podcast with you. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the CEO of UK Fast. So I sat down with him and we had an hour-long podcast about my journey, and Manchester Evening News published an article about my successes with the market. That was through Tech Manchester. They helped me publish out to Business Cloud. Obviously, Lawrence Jones's podcast helped me get traction with investors, but I was far too early. And honest to God, they made me feel so welcome. And every month or 2, they had a different workshop. So they had lawyers that would come in and talk about what laws you need to have in place as a tech company. They had people coming board telling you about your sales strategy. And I almost forgot about the business at one stage because I was so invested in learning and so intrigued by learning all these different aspects of what it takes to own a tech business that I almost for 6 months forgot the business itself. And I was just like a kid back in school. But this time I was behaving and learning.
That's a really, really good comments there. And I think Tech Manchester are kind of part of that whole ecosystem about giving people that first step up. And as you say, it is a learning journey. We all come to our own startup venture with an idea and their own backdrop. But surrounding yourself with a network of people is one of the key takeaways. Don't be frightened to ask questions. Don't think they're dumb questions. It's kind of get connected, get into a network. And they will actually then, take you up that startup journey and fast track you. And there's a lot of help in Manchester. And yeah, I'd really wave a flag for Tech Manchester and Trish Keating too.
Absolutely. And, that was the start of my journey. And I never looked back since. I was sitting amongst already established tech entrepreneurs, getting a lot of their feedback, getting a lot of advice, and sat there and thinking, what do I do? I need money to build tech. I don't want to get investment too soon. I had companies that were saying, you've got a great idea, Reece. We think this is going to be amazing. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we just need you to sign here for 50% of your business. And I'm like, no way. Like, come on, I'm not stupid. So then I was like, where's the gap? where is the gap? How am I ever going to fill this gap? I've hit a ceiling. I can't scale. So I just carried on, working with small companies and small influencers, and just this idea of this MVP and what it would look like. And I was even, sending reports to influencers saying what are their pain points, asking brands what their pain points. I pretty much did everything I possibly could except build this product. And I think that's when I sat down with an investor called James Merriweather from KM Capital. And it was absolutely of no obligation whatsoever. He came out of his own way, sat down with me in a cafe in Manchester and goes, what is it you're trying to do? And I showed him the MVP, and he was looking at me like, why the hell is he going through every feature of this platform with me? But I did. And he said, look, I really see what you're doing. He goes, but, you're far too early for us to just throw money at this. He goes, I think you should go and speak to a company called the Startup Factory. And I was like, ooh, well, that just rings a bell from the outset, the Startup Factory. So I reached out. I came across a guy called Guy, and he said, who are you, basically? And I introduced myself, and we got speaking about the business. And, he took a ring to it. He understood how big the market is and what the opportunity is with influence marketing, certainly with it becoming more of a buzzword. And he honestly felt, to say this quite frankly, it almost felt like I wasn't even pitching to him. It was like I had a friend from the outset. He was just like, look, let me just see how I can help you. I'm not selling to you. I don't want to take any of your business. I just want to speak to you and see what you're trying to achieve. And then from that moment, I met you guys who came in, we spoke about it. You give me a book, the design sprint, what processes I need to go through to make sure that I'm building something that people want, what they need rather than what I think they want. And, at that stage, it was too early, and rightly so. And, you told me to go away. You told me to carry on working. And I did for another 9 months. I didn't give up. And I think that's a massive thing for any of you guys listening, certainly as newly founders, that throughout any doubts or any reason that you may feel that you're not going to be able to achieve what your outset is, resilience and patience is key. Because if I could have given up at that moment. I could have said, I've tried everything I can. I've learned everything I can. I can't get the money. That's it. I'm done. But I didn't. For another 9 months, I carried on working at this idea. And at some points, I'm not going to lie to you, I felt like I was going bloody mad. I thought, am I ever going to build this thing? Am I ever going to be able to get this money? But, I carried on, and I knocked back on the door. And Guy went, look how much progress you've made since we've last spoke. And then, boom, there I was. I was having a conversation with you guys about how we can work together.
Yeah, it's that famous phrase, isn't there, about, it's taken me 12 months to be an overnight success. And the fact that you were tenacious and you stuck at it, again, impressed us. The research you'd done, the testing, the validation, the whole network that you built. And there is this kind of celebritization of entrepreneurship, Reece, that it's right, I need to raise money. I need to raise a seed round. I'm looking at an A round, where your idea isn't formed enough. And, as we've chatted subsequently, as we've been working together, taking other people's money changes everything. Whereas really, you should be chasing customers to validate your idea as a first off, and bootstrapping. And then you'll kind of connect with the right sort of people and the right mentality. So it's been a long journey for you, but I think, you've been robust about it personally, and you're so much better informed about the market opportunity and how to solve it. And the kind of brainstorming sessions we now have are because you've kind of validated your idea.
Absolutely. And I made that mistake, Ian. I initially thought I needed money to build this. I thought that is the only way I can get this, by, getting investment. And if I was to get investment and have 50% took of my business, I wouldn't have had the business from day one, as far as I'm concerned. It would have been somebody else's. And that was the strategy behind that. And, I did carry on chasing customers. I did get that validation. And, opportunities did come about where it wasn't necessarily taking money from somebody, but I'm quite happy to open up and tell you guys about this. Thank God for the government and the bounce back loan that gave me the opportunity to be able to go forward with this. And, I felt it was that resilience that gave me that opportunity to make this happen.
Mm. I think it's that. And I think there's also the fact that, especially, speaking of obviously we deal day to day on the project at the moment as we're going through it, but how your thinking developed and changed and really understood what an MVP needed to be able to do and how that serviced your customers, and really focusing on the goals of wanting this community and wanting people there who are really going to add to this, and really honing in on that part of your thinking, how that developed the flows, screens, and then obviously how we've interacted since has been a real credit to you, and obviously sets Social Plug in a really good stead going forward.
Well, and to yourselves as well, to be quite honest with you, because for a gentleman that still can't write a line of code and doesn't understand technology, I swear to God, you may have in my mind made the most complex things so simple, where I'm left dumbfounded thinking, how did I think that was so complex? Because you really take away the complex ideas and make something so simple in a process that is so easy to understand. And that brings so much transparency and trust in the relationship with what I have with you guys, because when you think about giving somebody money, whether you've got that yourself, whether you've raised investment, you're essentially looking for somebody else that you trust to build a product that you have the idea of, and there's a massive communication gap between how do I make sure that this person is going to build something that I want. And there can be so many different scenarios and fatal scenarios where that can go wrong from day one, even from the point of saying, here's some money to build a product, and they've not even built that product based on your own IP, it's somebody else's. So straight away, it's not even your code, it's somebody else's code base. You've made a fundamental mistake from day one. And these type of things can really, be fatal from the outset. And the process that you guys have, the way that you work, certainly even just the software that we use to see where we're currently at with the product, what tickets are we working on, what projects are we working on. I honestly can't think of any other way it could be better.
That's great feedback, Reece. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, one of the things we try to do is capture that spirit of collaboration, where you bring an idea, we've got some expertise, and between us we can create something great. We spent a lot of time talking about the hard yards and the hard aspects of the journey. What have been the kind of success points, and what does success look like for you in the next 6 to 12 months?
Wow, that is an amazing question. I think, every milestone at the minute I am grateful for. Even the fact I'm sat here talking to you guys, looking at the development stages of the product, looking at doing a low fidelity launch in June, going to the beta launch in August. It's just like, wow, how have I got here? I feel so grateful, and I do take those moments to really reflect at how far I've come. From the outset, I don't ever feel, maybe it's me being a miserable git, but don't feel content. I'm never quite happy with where I'm currently at, because I've come so far to this stage, but now I'm it's not concerned, but already thinking, where do I need to be next? What stage do I need to be at next to make sure that this works? Success for me in 6 months is building an incredible content creator community that is able to provide brands with the content they need in an ever demanding market, and being able to market through your own customers, essentially. Who better to market and talk about your products than your customers yourselves? And I feel in 6 to 12 months, I really want to be able to be recognized for having a community of content creators in a world which currently influencers don't have the best ring to it. I think in a world where depression, anxiety is a massive key factor, and loneliness, and people scrolling on their phones, comparing themselves to these highly filtered individuals, people are craving authenticity and trust more so than ever before. And I want to make sure and be proud of the community that I've built, because we talk about and celebrate products, services, and businesses that add value and credibility to the world, if that makes sense. And that's something that I really want to stand by. I don't want to be an influencer product that tells people to drink tea and they're going to be slim in 2 weeks. That is not who we are. That is not who I want to stand by. I want to build a community that people really value, that they trust, and that is respected. And I feel that's something that I really want to leave in the world. And not only that as well, from me and my entrepreneurial journey, content creators are looking at this as more of a career now. And if I can provide a platform where every single one of us from the most deprived backgrounds have the ability to have a mobile phone in their hand, the one feature on that phone that is getting better year in, year out is the camera. And if I can give these individuals an opportunity to make money through that one device by connecting with brands for a clothes that they need or to put food in their mouth, just by being creative artists, then that I think is an amazing thing that I can be proud of.
As a goal, I don't really think there's anything, and obviously hopefully quite soon, obviously we're in a position where the software will help you achieve that. Like I say, influencers do tend to have a bad name for themselves these days, and you seem to get a lot of posts and a lot of hate towards them. But the value they can provide to a brand when they are genuine and really trying to provide a way isn't just obviously good for Social Club, but it's good for brands in general. Like you said about your examples earlier, how they turned those celebrities and influencers coming in to get their teeth white and turned into they can't accept any new clients. What business wouldn't want, or what brand wouldn't want that sort of association, that sort of growth?
Absolutely. And I think I've got a responsibility to police the brands that I'm going to be working with. I don't want a slimming pill on there trying to advertise to influencers. And to be quite honest with you, I'm in two minds. Do I accept these brands to come on my platform and leave it to the influencer? But I think, no, I don't think I should. I think I should have a responsibility to make sure that these brands aren't giving a false image to individuals and using influencers as a means to get that. So I feel in some respects that we have to have, and every company has some values. And I feel I'm still formulating those values. And I think that's one value that I'm definitely sticking by, authenticity and trust with the brands that we work with.
I mean, it's just flown by this week. I'm not even looked at the time, realised we're at half an hour. So the way we like to end these, Reece, is by, I know we kind of covered it there, but really asking for if you were to be speaking to someone now who's about to start their journey into being a tech entrepreneur and making their own startup, what would be your one key piece of advice? Just say to them, this is what I did and this is how it worked. What would be that one thing, that real nugget you'd want to impart?
I think given the time that we're in, certainly with, lockdown, people are more active online at the minute. You're more likely to get somebody's attention because they're working from home. They may not necessarily be as busy. If you are building a product and you're really unsure where to start, I think the biggest asset that you have from day one is your network. Go and focus on, continue with your business. If you are running it manually like I was, try and get as many customers through the door in the meantime to get as much traction. And in the background, just network with as many people as you possibly can and build that network. Because honestly, I'm still now to this day, had a conversation yesterday with somebody, thought, Jesus, if I didn't go and meet that person last year who I thought wasn't even relevant, I wouldn't be in the position I was now, having an opportunity to make business with this person. You wouldn't believe how, and I'm not really skeptical or I'm quite pragmatic, but it is unbelievable how I think the world works sometimes in terms of the people that I've come across and the things you learn at a certain key stage in your business. And that is all through your network and the resources that you get. So what I could say to anybody right now is go and build your network.
Ian, how about you from your side of the fence?
Yeah, I think that there's two specific things that I think around Reece that I've learned and would kind of share. I think one is follow your passion. I think there's undoubtedly that you can hear in Reece's voice, his energy, his determination. He's got a passion for it. And we talked about that self-belief aspect of passion as well. I believe in this, I'm going to do it. But the real admirable quality and the takeaway is you've got to work hard. It doesn't come to your door. You've got to get out your door. You've got to go and find it and do it. And you can broaden that network definition that Reece has got about connecting with people who can help you move your business forward. So they won't come to you. You've got to get out there and do that for yourself. And Reece has got that in bundles, and you get the rewards. Funny old thing, the harder you work, the more successful you get to be. And that kind of fits with our ethic as well, the sort of people we like to work with, that work ethic and that strong self-belief, the determination to make it happen for yourself.
The one thing that came through my door was the cheque, but the business didn't. You've got to go out and get it.
Yeah, well, hopefully there'll be a few more checks coming through the door. But money's the applause, Reece. We've not talked about money. If money is your motivator for a start, I think well, that's not who we work with. That's not the right trigger. It's purpose, passion, and belief.
Absolutely.
And having a set of values.
Absolutely.
So this has been really great. I'm sure we can do episode 2 and episode 3 as we go down the journey and continuing to share the learning points and the highs and the challenges that you face. But that's been great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
So just in case people want to get in touch about Social Plug and what you're doing, how can they get hold of you, Reece?
drop me an email, Reece, REECE, at socialplug.co.uk. And if you want to keep up with what I get up to day to day, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Reece Douglas1 or hit me up on LinkedIn for more information about the influencer market at Reece Douglas.
Thank you very much. So I think that's just about it for this week. So I think next week we're actually on with Gavin, aren't we, Ian? So we can almost talk about, we've said it's not about the money, but obviously part of it is around due diligence and raising funds. So hopefully we can have a really interesting discussion with him then.
Yeah, so Gavin Bell's an investment manager at Maven Capital Partners. While it is about the money and the financials, the due diligence actually is 80% about the people, the idea, the market, the commercials. So we'll kind of give you a good insight. Again, most startup founders rush to producing some revenue projections. It's actually about validating your idea and what the market opportunity is. But yeah, we'll have a good natter with Gavin next week.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ian. Thank you very much, Reece. And thank you everyone for listening. And we'll hopefully catch you on the next one.
Thanks, Reece. Thanks, James.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
I think that just about wraps things up here. If you have any thoughts or questions on anything we said today, get in touch, whether that be through our Twitter @RealTSF or email at hello@startupfactory.tech, or feel free to drop in for a coffee and a chat. As ever, thanks for listening.